Today I want to talk about all things EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's interesting, EMDR used to be something that was so obscure, whereas now we have, inquiries and phone calls with people specifically requesting EMDR. So the knowledge is spreading about what EMDR is, but there's still a lot of unanswered questions. So I want to spend some time with you today answering some of the most common questions that our clients approach us with. And I'm hoping that what we can do together is demystify the process of EMDR and receiving trauma treatment and tick off some of those big questions.
And also explain it as simply as possible.
For those listening, imagine reliving the worst day of your life or the most awful experience of your life non-stop. And that's what it's like to have a traumatic experience. It feels like it's never really ending, because in every memory there's a beginning and a middle and an end. With a traumatic memory, there's no such thing. It always feels like it's happening in the very moment, which is why a lot of our clients come to us with all of these really awful experiences and this ongoing connection to that experience through their emotional world and their body sensations and flashbacks, and there's many more like that. So it's an awful thing to go through, and unfortunately traditional talk therapy just doesn't cut it with trauma treatment. What's been your experience with that before we dive into some of those questions that we want to answer?
Talk therapy is very valuable and it has its place, and it's a really great way to understand yourself more and cognitively process some things. But it doesn't actually address the trauma, because the trauma is in the body. And to get to that trauma in the body, we need to go deeper than that, which is why EMDR is an incredible therapy, because it literally goes straight into the body and the unconscious mind.
I want to tick off the questions one by one, and I think we'll alternate, and feel free to chime in, and I'll chime in on your questions as well if you feel like we can contribute. I want to make sure we give the perspective of a psychologist, but also an EMDR therapist, energy healer, and hypnotherapist. I feel like we can bring in some perspective to the clients and be able to show them what is the path ahead if you're seeking trauma treatment, and how can EMDR be a tool that can support you through this. Chances are, if you're here, you kind of know that EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization reprocessing, which kind of feels like pseudoscience, pop psychology. Somebody waves their hand in front of your face and you follow it, and suddenly your trauma is resolved. And, I'm oversimplifying it, but to some degree,
that's what it
is.
That
does have some truth to it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot more complex, but when people come to you, they're just like, well, this is not what I associate with psychology or treatment. So it can feel, it can almost feel like a TikTok reel.
Yeah, it is so science-based, and it's been used for over 40 years.
Yeah.
And used for complex PTSD. So it is a really incredibly scientific approach, but it just sounds woo-woo.
Yeah,
and it's not at all.
Yeah, and I want to dive in and talk more about that in a little bit as well. I really do love the story of how EMDR came about, and the person that discovered it or created EMDR was a woman called Shapiro, who went for a walk in the park one day and was holding some distressing memories in her mind. And as she moved bilaterally step by step and her eyes moved around, darting around, that she noticed those memories became less intense, and sometimes they were so desensitized and flat after she'd done that she'd wondered if they mattered anymore, when at the beginning of the walk they were distressing her. So she decided to put that to the test.
I think she was also looking at a bird flying.
Yeah, there's so many stories about what she was doing. There was like the birds and then the walk, and there's many stories. Shapiro was just out and about doing things.
Yeah.
But she was very observant, and thanks to her observations, we've been able to get access to something that's actually really made a huge contribution to trauma treatment. And it's interesting, I keep saying trauma treatment, but EMDR isn't just for trauma treatment. It's now being studied for things like eating disorders and depression and anxiety and panic disorder. And the list goes on. It's even been used for like peak performance and addiction.
It can be used in so many different ways. It's an incredible therapy.
So how does EMDR actually work? I really love explaining this to my clients because it takes something that's so mysterious and, as you said, a little bit woo-woo, and turns it into something that's tangible and practical. So I usually like to explain that EMDR targets 3 aspects of a memory. So generally we would map your traumatic memories from, birth until present day, and we're able to see clearly where those memories lie and the themes behind them. And then we extract one of these memories and we decide to work with it. In a single memory, there are 3 components. There is the content, the who, what, when, where of what happened. There is the emotional component, which is the body sensations and the feelings. And thirdly, this is something not many people talk about, is the belief component of a memory. And of course, with traumatic memories, it's a negative belief. So let me give you an example. I was, again, this is super random, 12 years old. I was outside riding my bike and I fell over and broke my leg. That's a who, what, when, where. No one was there to help me. The emotional experience was fear, overwhelm, sadness, and a lot of pain physically. And the belief system is that I'm not safe and no one's there to protect me. Those components now all get stored in some way or form within our psyche and within our body. And until we are able to go back into those memories, extract them and work with them, they remain stored in that way. And they continue to contribute to your life in ways that are quite negative. So going back to the memory, what does EMDR do? It distances the content, so it makes it feel far away so it no longer flashes back. Secondly, it desensitizes, which is just a fancy way of saying it takes the kick out of the memory and the emotions settle down and they don't no longer feel intense. So when you remember them, you don't have any body reactions. It's just a memory that happened. And thirdly, it takes that negative belief that we talked about and turns it into something positive or neutral. And I think that is the most important thing, because a negative belief is like a distortion. It's a set of glasses that you wear that dictate how you see the world. And if you've seen the world through the lens of I'm not safe, and you finally get to take that lens off, your vision is cleared now. You're no longer seeing the world in a distorted way. I think that is truly the power of EMDR.
And it's such a magical process watching it work, actually, when you take the memory, when you process it, and when you get through to the other side and see that negative belief then turn into a positive belief, and the incredible wisdom that comes out of that people carry on for the rest of their life. It blows me away every single time, and how it works every time.
And it's spontaneous. It's not something that we planned. It's not something we tell them they should think about or should feel. It comes about through going through the process of EMDR and somebody spontaneously saying, I'm okay now. I'm okay as I am. I am enough. I am lovable.
I am safe.
Statements that never felt real or familiar become almost part of who they are.
And watching them go, their positive cognition go up, 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 up. And by the end of the session, it's gone from 0 to 10, or the positive belief has gone from 0 to 10.
That's right.
I love watching that process.
Yes, absolutely.
And like you said, we're just holding the space and guiding the process, right? We're not suggesting anything. This is all going on in their beautiful brains.
Yes.
And
and if you're watching this and you're wondering what a positive cognition and rating is, when we start the process, we get people to rate their level of distress out of 10, with 10 being the worst. And we also get them to rate some positive beliefs out of 10, with 10 being the best or the most believable. And generally what we see at the beginning is the positive belief is rated as, I don't really believe it. And the level of distress is usually somewhere closer to 10. And by the time the process is ended for that memory, most people are about anywhere between 0 to 2 level of intensity of distress, which is quite low. And we've got the positive belief now heading closer to 10 in terms of believability and them really owning that belief for their life, which is really incredible to watch, as you said.
It's the life-changing part, yeah.
Yeah.
My question for you would be, is EMDR safe for everyone?
EMDR can be used for many people, but it is on the clinician and the client to sit down and make an agreement as to whether it's suitable for them. And that requires a really detailed assessment at first. So we want to understand, are there any symptoms of psychosis, or is there a really intense level of emotion dysregulation or suicidality that we need to manage first? It's so important that some things are navigated first as a stepped approach before we introduce EMDR. To some degree, when we're doing EMDR, we want you to be somewhat present within the process. And if you're significantly dissociating or having psychotic symptoms or highly suicidal, the process can feel a little bit unsafe and not ideal. So we get that under control first, and we manage and navigate those things by resourcing you and making sure you can tolerate sitting with difficult emotions. I mean, dissociation to some level is expected. You cannot completely remove dissociation from the equation, but you can try to navigate it. So there's one foot in the memory and one foot in the present day. Because ultimately, when we begin the EMDR process, we're asking people to recall some of the most toughest memories of their life whilst being able to still remain present in the room with us, one foot there, one foot here, and to allow the processing to occur. So let's build safety, let's create resources, and together with your clinician, you can decide, is this right for me or not? So one of the questions I really get asked a lot, Rania, is, am I going to have to tell you every single detail of what happened? I've been telling everybody, I've seen multiple therapists. Do I have to relive this again with talking about it? Does EMDR involve that?
Yeah, it's such a common question, and I do believe it's probably what puts a lot of people off from continuing their healing journey, because they're just so tired of telling the same story, going from therapist to therapist, filling out this, doing that, and it's like it's not got them anywhere. So with EMDR, what's actually quite beautiful about it is you don't need to retell the whole story. So we're basically, as you mentioned at the beginning, with the EMDR process, we're really just needing headlines of your experiences. And sometimes we'll find with even the headlines, which is when, what, where, then the emotions and the beliefs. So some people may have actually blocked out a memory. There's a part of them that's protected them in the memory. So they may only know that something happened, and they may have the emotions or the feelings that are connected to that memory. So sometimes in an EMDR process, we're not even processing a memory. We're actually just processing the emotions connected to that. They might not even go into the memory, but they're removing what the experience has left in their body. So no, in answer to your question, you don't need to retell it. However, some people like to, because that is also part of the process. So I'm not saying it doesn't happen. If someone wants to go into details and it's easier for them to build a picture in their mind and memory, and it's very specific, then absolutely we can do that. But otherwise, no, it is very simple what we need, and we don't need to retell anything.
It's very true, because when we work with complex PTSD, which includes childhood traumatic experiences, a lot of our clients have some level of amnesia almost around their memories. They've lost this chronological feel to their experiences in childhood. They might even, they might remember that it didn't feel good, that it was awful, or that it was torturous, but they don't have specific memories that they can tease out and pull out. And I love that with EMDR, we don't have to get into the specific memory, that we can just work with the feeling and the beliefs. And so it's really brilliant to be able to go, you don't need to remember as if though it's a video or an image in your mind. Find the implicit body memory. Find how it makes you hold your body in certain levels of tension. Find the stored emotions and how the patterns roll within your body, and let's hopefully liberate you from that.
Yeah, exactly. So if you have that feeling of, I don't actually know what happened, but you know that you felt guilt or you felt shame or you didn't feel safe, that essentially is all we need to work with. And I just want to use my own story as an example. When I first received EMDR therapy myself, I actually didn't have the memories, or I had brushed them off as just being, it's just a part of my life. It was just what happened. I've dealt with it. And when we began to process, this incredible woman who I worked with at the time actually just took a current experience that I had. And when we took that current experience and the feelings that were connected with that, it took me directly back to childhood, to a memory I didn't even remember before my whole life. So it's really interesting how that process happens. EMDR will work differently for everyone. If unconsciously you're taken back to a memory that you don't remember, then that's perfect. That's the one that we need to process. And yeah, again, it's different for everyone.
It's interesting because the memories are stored like a web in some way or form. They're all interconnected in some way. So you might have a present day experience that's igniting all of these feelings that sometimes make you feel like they're unjustified. Like, I don't know why I'm feeling such strong emotions just because this person is running late to a catch up that we have. But this could actually, if you were to float back through time, is linked to the many times that maybe I was left home alone. And my parents were, working, or whatever it might be, that experience that made me feel unsafe, unimportant, neglected. And we could then relive that through present day triggers. And I think that's where we end up seeing our clients. They come in because their lives are so unmanageable. They're constantly getting triggered left, right, and center. And it's like, I don't know why I feel the way I feel. Not everybody comes in and goes, hey, I have all these memories. Let's go. Let's process that.
That's
they
rare.
come in with going like, my life is really unmanageable
now,
right now, and I'm struggling to live meaningfully, and everything triggers me. And then we go, okay, let's talk about trauma. Let's talk about where that comes from. Let's float back into your storyline and see if there are memories attached to that we can process with, for example, EMDR.
Yeah, it's such an interesting process to look at it like that, with whatever you're experiencing now is connected to those memories. So like you said, you can float back and see where and connect the dots. And then if someone's unable to, I guess, connect those dots because it's been so blocked, we've got other tools we can use, like timeline therapy or something like that, to really float back and see where it all started.
Do you find that EMDR, though, unlocks some memories that were previously, I've had clients that go, I just don't remember, 0 to 21 is gone. And then yet when we float back and we begin the process of EMDR, suddenly they're like, oof. As we were doing the processing, something's just come up. Oof, this new memory I didn't know existed, which interestingly creates fear in people. It's like, well, are you opening Pandora's box? Those things were put away. Are you just bringing stuff up that's going to cause more harm for me?
Well, that's why we have containment, and that's why we have resourcing within the EMDR process, so that that doesn't happen. And we're only going to work with what's there to be worked with. But you're so right. When that happens, it's like they've come in with stuff around their father, for example, but somehow father turns into mother. And then it's the memories with the mother, then we work with that, and then that's connected back to the father, and then it all just kind of gets, I don't know.
Or
not
it
tied up
even
with
starts with like boss. My boss is being an asshole.
Yeah.
And then it's like boss being an asshole is now connected to dad, who was, unavailable or judgmental or critical. It can even go from that.
Yeah, it's watching it unfold sometimes is just like incredible as they're processing, to see what's leading to what, and then how to work through the core of the pain the client's experiencing.
And for those who say, I'm going to come to therapy and all we're going to do is dig and bring things up to the surface, the way I like to answer that is they're there anyway. They're just manipulating your life through the tentacles, like these little octopus, not little, it's a huge octopus internally, that is your traumatic experiences, with all these tentacles that are coming out and controlling how you feel, how you think, how you move, how you behave, how you relate to the world. And you just don't know about it. And not knowing about it doesn't mean it's not manifesting in your life. It's controlling how you operate. It's controlling everything. Knowing about it now gives you something that you can do with it. So yes, if new memories pop up, I say, great, let's work with it, because let's bring the unconscious to the conscious, and now we can do something with it. In fact, it creates even more meaningful outcomes down the track.
So when people talk about talk therapy, that is just talking about it. And actually, what is the point of consistently bringing things up if you're not actually going to process it? And I think it's important to remember that EMDR, we are processing, desensitizing these experiences, all right? We're not just bringing them up and holding them there. We're processing them. So it's all perfect, whatever comes up for you. So a question I get asked a lot as well is, will I forget my trauma? Like, will my memories be erased? Like, what happens to it?
It's a great question because, on the one hand, they do become distance. This is what we call it. The who, what, when, where, that image, the way we hold memories kind of feels far away. I have some clients who describe it as, my memory feels like it's really far away. Another client said, it's like it's behind frosted glass. Or someone said it's like in a black and white TV and I just turned it off.
I've heard like grayscaling as well. It's like grey, it's like all the colours drawn out of it, or like sepia, or almost like blurry, or almost like it's in a book and it's someone else's story.
Exactly. It feels 2D. It's no longer 3D. It's flat. It's far away. And these are all beautiful descriptions that we see. And we know when that happens, this is when distancing has occurred. Does it erase memory? No, it does not. Does it distance memory? Absolutely. And distance creates relief. That is one of the aspects of EMDR's processing: distancing, desensitization, and positive beliefs. And so the distancing effect means that the memory no longer comes in and intrudes in the present day. It's slotted back into the filing cabinet of your memory and it's put away. A lot of people think that they will lose memories that are really important to them, because alongside traumatic memories are beautiful childhood experiences. If I want to, for example, process a traumatic loss or a death in my life, I don't want to forget the person that died, but I do want to distance the memory of how that death happened.
The pain associated with it.
Absolutely. So then, and you can't process grief. You can process the traumatic pain. Grief remains. In fact, any trauma that we process, what's left over is this sort of heavy sense of loss, which is a very normal and necessary part of a human's experience when they've lost it. So I explain to my clients, you won't lose the memory of your loved one. Your loved one remains in your mind. In fact, the grief around the loss still stays, but it no longer is a sharp, painful, kick to the gut, awful experience. It is a more general sadness at a loss, if that makes sense. Your memories still remain. The heat and the nasty effect of what a traumatic experience can do to body and mind, that's what we're looking to desensitize.
And what about the grief for you, what you had to go through? Like once you've processed it and you can see what happened, it's no longer in your body, but there's this sadness for yourself at that age, or what happened to you and how you got treated. What about that?
Exactly. I mean, let's give some personal examples. When I've processed my memories from childhood with EMDR, what remains is this deep sadness for what that little girl missed out on. And so I can't help when the heat is taken out of it, when it's processed, I'm just left with this soft sadness and love for her, and this desire to just want to hold and protect her. EMDR can't change the fact that I was neglected or abused in my childhood. That's not going to be gone. But what can go is the pain, the suffering, the shame.
All the negative beliefs.
All the negative beliefs that I held about myself that were never really true about me. All the times that I blamed myself, which was never really true. I can now release myself from that. I can remember the truth of who I am as a human being, and that I am enough, I am lovable, I am safe, or I wasn't safe then, but I am safe now. And that's the belief, these are the beliefs I want to carry. But it does not change the fact that it happened. And I have to live with the loss of that, with the loss of never having a childhood that felt really safe. Or conducive to my needs. When a client comes to us and they're ready for processing, they've now looked at their memories, they may have mapped out what they want to process that is traumatic, They're now resourced maybe. They've got some more tools and strategies so that we can make sure they can, stay in the room with us as opposed to really dissociating or feeling unsafe after the session. So all of the initial steps that we've done have been completed. We're now up to the stage where the client is like, let's process the memory, and we're all ready for it. How does that look like from your perspective?
Okay, so we've got the memory, and we've had a look at the positive cognition, which is the positive belief that they're wanting to have after we've processed that memory. And then we've taken the distress levels from that memory, which could be anywhere from a 7 to a 10, depending on the level of what it is. And then we begin the processing. So we'd get them to bring up the experience, the memory, and then we start. It might be eye movement, it might be bilateral stimulation, it might be tapping. If a client is highly distressed, then I might get them to spell words out while they're tapping, maybe while they're looking for the eye movement as well. They might be doing many things, doing maths, doing this, doing that. And then as they're going through the rounds, the intensity and the pain of what the client is feeling looks different for everyone. Sometimes it's a lot of physical pain. Sometimes it's in the memories. And as we go through each round, we're just asking them to notice. So the process of it basically can go like this. I almost look at it, like your heartbeat, how it's like this. So it kind of goes up, and then it kind of starts to come down as the wisdom comes in, as the body starts to relax, as things change in their body, as the belief changes. And then you might hear them saying things like, oh, that shouldn't have happened. Then the anger might start to come out, and then the anger feels different again in the body. So it is a bit of a roller coaster sometimes, I would say, in a general EMDR session. It's anything from deep pain to anger to fear, coming back to calm, to groundedness, to wisdom. I'm okay. I'm safe now. That wasn't okay, but this is all right. I'm ready to take care of myself. I can parent myself. That shouldn't have happened. So it really, I don't know if that's a helpful answer to your question, because it really is just such a...
Sessions are so varied, and it is helpful. And for anyone who's listening who's considering doing EMDR, I don't want this to scare you.
Yeah.
You are held by a highly experienced practitioner who is supporting you in doing this. EMDR shouldn't be done alone. It should be done with someone who's incredibly experienced and able to support you through that process. And the pain and difficulty that you do experience as part of processing is temporary. This is what I like to stress to my clients. You can either continue to feel the discomfort, the pain, the suffering, the octopus that's controlling you unconsciously, and you can live a life that way, and that's a life of hard. Or you can live this hard, which is I come to a therapist for several sessions. I clear out some of my traumatic memories that are distorting my life and my perceptions and creating behaviors that are unhelpful for me. And I can then move forward in a different way. So you get to choose your hard. And I encourage you to choose the hard that allows you to bring the unconscious to the conscious, really look at the stuff that you need to be looking at, feel the temporary pain, and give yourself a chance to live a more meaningful life that way.
Yeah, I also want to point out that not every experience is like that as well. I have had, and I'm sure you have had them as well, where it's just a very internal process for the client, where you're going through the memory, you're going through the processing of the memory, and there might actually be not a lot of tears or anger or anything like that. It might be very quiet. I think we've had this discussion before, where it could even just be one tear, or it might be just a little bit of discomfort in your belly or in your chest or in your head, or it can be quite quiet, but then it's processed, and it can be softer and gentle. It's not for everyone, but that might be your process too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The interesting thing about EMDR is everyone's like, how does it work? Like, what is this random tapping? And as you called it, bilateral stimulation and eye movements. how does all of this, and singing and saying random words or mathematical equations, it feels like absolute madness. And it's so interesting that we have many theories about how EMDR works, but we still, to this day, don't fully know which theory is, or if it really encapsulates the fullness of how it actually changes somebody's life. But what we do know is that when a memory is brought from the long term into the working memory, we can do something about it now. It's changeable. And we know for a fact that memories are not stored exactly as they are. They're always changing. Every time we bring a memory back from long term, we're actually making changes to it. Nothing is ever stored like a video, because that's not how memories work. So we know memories can be manipulated. And that's amazing. That's what EMDR utilizes. Bring it from the long term into the working memory. Now you can do something with it. It so happens that bilateral stimulation, lots of different activities are taxing the working memory in a certain way that allows processing to happen. And your brain is so incredible, your mind is so incredible. It takes a memory that is negative and it goes, but I've got all these incredible adaptive networks within the brain. Even though I've been through traumatic experiences, but I also have some good experiences. And it takes that negative memory or traumatic memory and puts it against the what we call adaptive neural network, and it allows it to kind of fuse with that, and it borrows and leans on the beautiful experiences that you've already had as a way to support the processing. So I think that's really incredible. So if you've had a really healthy relationship, or if you've had this amazing work colleague who was really consistent in the way they showed up for you, whatever it might be, you're going to literally be leaning on those experiences for your processing in some way.
Yeah, and I think remembering as well this, when we've had the experience that we've experienced, when the trauma has happened, in the moment we potentially weren't given the space or the time to process. And, just like animals process their trauma with shaking it out and doing the stuff in the moment, then they're fine. Most of the time, the people that are seeing us haven't had that space to do it yet. So in the process of EMDR, as we're desensitizing and as we're reprocessing, I'm sure you've had this too, when you've got physical reactions, it's like maybe the anger is coming up, or someone is wanting to, maybe their experiences were where they were fighting someone off them, for an example. So you have this kind of action stuff coming up as well. And in the process, they're able to fulfill that too. So maybe it is, I remember recently having to leave the room so I could allow my client to scream and just let out this anger from their body. And once the screaming had happened, because they never got a chance to use their voice, oh my goodness, that was just a whole nother level of processing. So yeah, there's so many aspects to this of what people can process in EMDR.
Let's do some rapid fire questions. Can it be done online?
Absolutely. In fact, online is often really, really effective because people are in their own space. They're feeling comfortable. They can process right there when the session is finished. They're not having to go outside. They're in their environment. So yeah, it's really powerful online.
Yeah, same. I've done almost 50-50, I would say, split at the moment. My preference is always in person.
Mine too.
I like to have my clients with me. But, if anything that COVID has taught us, it is that we can do pretty much most things online. So that's really awesome. How many sessions does it take on average?
Oh, that's a hard question to answer. For some people, it's super quick. Some people, it might be 4 sessions. Some people, it might be 20. So, yeah.
Depends on the person, depends on their experiences. I've had clients come to me after a car accident. That's taken 3 sessions to do, maybe less. I've had clients who've come to me, at the age of 40 with repressed childhood memories, almost decades worth of abuse. And that has taken, a much longer period. Sometimes, anywhere between 10 to all the way up to 20 sessions.
Yeah, I think it also depends on how resourced the person is before coming to work as well. If they're already resource supported, that kind of thing, sometimes the process can be faster. If they're practicing, they're resourcing in between sessions. That speeds up the process even more. So yeah, it's no one size fits all for each person.
And how does a client feel like after a session?
Potentially very tired, or energized. I mean, I think it can go either way.
I usually get them quite tired.
Yeah, I have had
Yeah.
energized, or maybe even, I guess that's that sense of relief.
Yeah,
After
the
a
calm,
session,
the peace.
I'm really hungry. I have a client who's starving every time we process afterwards. She's just like dying to leave so she can eat.
It's probably because the nervous system's finally settled, that she's finally experiencing hunger.
Yeah, exactly. Potentially you can have very interesting dreams, or even when you're processing, you continue to process, right, for potentially 48 hours, sometimes even longer. So I've had really interesting situations where a client's processed within a session. Something may have come up towards the end of the session. We've contained it, they've left. And as they've continued to process, revelations have come through, which they've then brought into the next session. So, people generally journal after a session if anything comes up, because the relevant stuff will be brought to the surface. But in answer to your question, generally it's exhausted. Yeah.
Absolutely. Practical recommendations are get lots of sleep, make sure you're moving your body. Movement after processing is essential. So even if it's a gentle walk, some level of stretching, if you go to the gym, absolutely go to the gym. So sleep, rest, movement, make sure you take care of yourself, no substances, no alcohol, nothing that sedates you, because as you said, the process runs for sometimes 48 to 72 hours afterwards. So you're going to lose that magic. And it also might impact the integration of what you've just done. Is that, where the dust is all around you. We've just dusted so many things inside your mind. The dust needs to settle. It needs to find its place. You need to make meaning.
Yeah.
You need to make meaning from it. And we don't want to be interrupting that process with substances or a glass of wine or Valium or whatever it might be. So abstinence from all of that during the processing period is essential. I think we've covered loads of questions, and it's been nice to be able to give almost an introduction to what EMDR is like, how it feels, what the process looks like, what's the theory behind it. If anyone is watching this and has more questions for us,
please
pop the questions in the comment section. We'd love to be able to answer any questions you have. Subscribe, let us know what you want to hear from us in the future. We can talk all things therapy modalities, practices, stories of what it's like to be in the room with us. We want to be able to share the perspective, because my goal, and I know your goal, is to demystify therapy so that it's accessible, so that more people feel empowered to reach out, to see that there are humans on the other side of therapy, clinicians who have gone through their own therapy, and that they're able to hold this space in a beautiful, safe way, and that this is a better option than bottling and doing this alone.
And just like you said, also just give you some hope that there is modalities that can work for the depth of what you've been through, and that there is a life outside of your trauma.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you. I really enjoyed this conversation with you. I can't wait to do it again.
Yes.